La próxima ciudad invitada a este Syrian Economic Forum es una ciudad francesa, concretamente Bordeaux. Vamos a conocer su transformación digital. Horretarako hiri horretatik etorri da Florence Forzy-Raffard, hiri horretako zinegotzia. She's going to talk about the digital transformation held in the city. S'il vous plaît.
Good afternoon, everybody. Arantxaldeon. Sorry, that's all I know. On behalf of the Mayor of Bordeaux, I would like to express my warm thanks to the Mayor of Bilbao and his representative, Javier, for inviting me to speak today at the first Cities and Economic Forum. I'm very honored to be amongst you today with so many eminent experts and speakers from all parts of the world. When it comes to developing and implementing a vision about smart and sustainable cities, a fair dose of humility is required. I'm not an expert. Don't expect from me the list of all the projects that we are delivering in Bordeaux. I think there are lots of experts in this room, and you'll be talking about it in the next presentations. I'm more going to talk about our vision, maybe even our philosophy. And it's interesting because there will be some common features with what Luis just said about Madrid, which means we must have the same preoccupations. So the perspective from a public administration, Bordeaux is about 750,000 inhabitants. How do we go about it? How do we think? What kind of leadership is expected from us? In a fast-changing world where we all talk about disruptions, how can we avoid becoming irrelevant and left on the side of the road? How do we help our citizens adapt to, and thrive in the 21st century economy? And likewise, how do we go on encouraging innovation and wealth creation, job creation, along with more sustainable practices? I think cities, local governments have one great advantage. We have this power to design and to quickly implement meaningful solutions, something that is visible, something that is measurable, not a great big plan for, a 20-year plan. We can really implement solutions to the problems, and we get feedback. We get immediate feedback because we're close to our citizens. We know our field of responsibility. We do not conduct business. There are a number of industry leaders in this room. We don't conduct business ourselves, but we are here to create favorable conditions for sustained economic and human development. In a city where people are happy to live, in a city where young people want to come and stay, in a city which attracts talents. For this, we need to bring together the skills and the enthusiasm of the entrepreneurs, local, global, big, small. We need to have a very open city, no data locking. And we need, of course, to provide all the components that are necessary for a properly running smart city. Of course, all the robust telecommunication infrastructure, but also all the user-friendly services and applications. Now, this is obvious, and this could be said about any city. What makes the success or the failure of our action depends largely on our capacity to identify and to respect the DNA, the essence of our city. Not one size fits all. Bordeaux is a historic city, worldwide famous for its wines, with a very fine heritage, and we need to protect it, we need to enhance it. We have in Bordeaux, just to give you an idea, not just a few monuments that are, UNESCO listed. We have 1,800 hectares in the city center that are part of UNESCO heritage. It means we need to treat very lightly there. Also, our citizens of Bordeaux, they share a number of values and expectations that we have been elected to fulfill. We need to understand our limitations. Public administrations are no digital natives. We are embracing today various transformations induced by the digital revolution, but we definitely are not naturally gifted. We cannot operate with the flexibility that is needed to cope with the pace of IT innovation. We must remember that sometimes we need to just step aside, let the private players do the work, because our footprint would be too heavy. We're not mobile enough, we're not agile enough. Let me be very blunt. In this digital transformation, the risk for local governments is to become irrelevant, left on the side of the road, and things to happen elsewhere without our approval. So we must give ourselves the means to think smart, to choose wisely. What game we want to play? We want to have a say in defining the rules of the game. I'll get back to this in a few minutes. And for this, we need to have a few smart people that really understand what's going on. In Bordeaux, we have been able to attract a few talents. One of them is Antoine, who's sitting here quietly on row 1 and who's helped me prepare this presentation. But this approach is really necessary because when you look back, you can see that some of our achievements, let's be real and let's call them mistakes. We have been, when I say we, collectively as city leaders, sometimes we make mistakes and we indulge ourselves into over-communication, over-marketing, bragging about overrated projects, and, well, campaigning for the next election. Give you a few examples maybe of mistakes around the world. I'm not trying to point fingers to anyone, but just a few costly mistakes. Well, in the 1980s and 90s, cities thought, you know, the world is growing, let's build more infrastructure. And they were just doubling the size of their freeways until they got to gridlock, because the more space you give to cars, the more cars you attract. Not the topic today, but just, you know, an example. And it's hard to get back, of course. Then the reality behind the hype. Think about, I don't know if some of you have heard, but what was a really good initiative from Mr. Sugata Mitra about the holes in the walls, which was free access computers for children. This is what it looks like 3 years down the track. Another costly mistake. The reality behind the hype. The danger of over-communicating. That's the symmetry of the best ideas in the world. We all know a few of them. Think about no, there's one missing, no? About the waste? Okay, I thought there was one more slide, sorry. You've all heard about that whiz kid who's devised the perfect solution to, you know, to clean our oceans from all the plastic waste floating around it. And it's still going on the social networks. Well, that idea has never got legs, you know, because it was completely abandoned because it was not a true solution. It wasn't efficient, it wasn't scalable, and yet it's still going around on Facebook and LinkedIn and everywhere as the perfect solution. This is not true, it's not happening. More broadly, we mustn't try to stick to the latest hype. We just want to think in the long run. Yes, what will the future look like? This is what we thought when in the 1980s and 80s, we thought we would be living like this today, you know, and eating pills and things like that. So let's not double guess what the future will be. We don't know what technology will deliver. Be humble, again, be humble. As public administrations, we're not startup companies. When we play the innovation game, we cannot benefit from the extraordinary challenging environment and, you know, the uplifting context that startup companies have. We can't compete with them. We can't hire the top-notch developers. They don't want to work in an administration where we are slow and heavy. Same, you know, it's much harder for us and for our teams to be confronted with the client's needs to create this very quick feedback loop because we don't sell anything. We can't adjust our services quickly. We don't have access to the massive fundraising opportunities that are needed when you want to develop a new technology. In a nutshell, we just don't have the same frame of mind as Yelp, Uber, or BlaBlaCar, or Waze. I think there's someone from Waze in this room. Yet, we do have an ambition to be smart, to be generous, and to be a useful player in that field. So how do we get about it? I'll share with you the way we think in Bordeaux. Yes, smart city is much more than this. You probably know this kind of classic representation of the various layers that could shape smart cities, from the IT infrastructures to communities. Do we want to act on all of these levels? Whether the answer is yes or no, I think the question must be debated publicly. Is it our role, public government, to create a fiber infrastructure that could eventually become a public good, that could be an asset of the city? Some American cities have decided to do that, to make that choice. Or do we prefer to rely on private telecommunication operators in the context of a framework agreement, of a PPP agreement with them? It's a political as well as an economic question. The same kind of debate could be held about our legitimacy to order or to develop a new service that hasn't yet been addressed by the private sector. Why, on which ground, how should we get involved? Should the answer be yes, we also have to be innovative and transparent in the way we're going to implement and develop these projects. So in Bordeaux, we tried to give ourselves a framework to be able to really assess and make wise decisions. We adopted from the private sector the business model canvas, which is redesigned to better match our priorities and test the robustness of our projects. What is the core value proposition of the project we're about to launch? What is the true service, the customer benefit of this brand new grid that, that company wants me to buy? What will be the true benefit of this new device for the classroom? Answering the question, raised by this canvas can be a very transparent and efficient way to challenge ourselves through open, fair discussions. Again, what Louis was saying earlier, and it does help enormously. One more advice: follow our intuitions. I would tend to have this very pragmatic approach, common sense. At some stage, we need to ask ourselves, is this wonderful, prototype system likely very hard to maintain, never implemented before, asking for a real financial effort? Isn't the price to pay too high sometimes? Intuition. Because, when you see this, when I see this, my first intuition is to say, well, this is just a glamorized can opener and nothing else. Sorry, just a private joke, okay? Local governments can be very naive, and it's very easy for a supplier to sweet talk us or to back scratch us into buying something we don't need or which is not a solution for us. An open government, I think we all agree with that. Everybody's talking about it. It is true that allowing the citizens to express their needs and expectations is the best way to start a successful journey towards innovation. And we have all the tools for that, so let's use them, and let's really use the feedback. One more principle that we have in Bordeaux. Let's be happy seconds. Silver medal. It is a dubious privilege to be the first to implement, a state-of-the-art, latest, fabulous, groundbreaking innovation, which turns out to be full of uncertainties, of missing elements, of plain bugs. We shouldn't be ashamed to use and disseminate tools that have been previously tested elsewhere and have proved successful. So our motto in Bordeaux is, silver rather than gold medal. We're happy with that. Security. Security, I would use even the word ethics. Another key subject linked to innovation is the need to ensure that we're not moving forward without gathering the conditions for security. I won't talk here about cybersecurity, which is of course top of our mind, all of us here today, but this is another matter. It needs, another conference in itself. But privacy protection is definitely an area of responsibility where we are in charge. We need the knowledge from the data collection, from the data mining, again, no data locking, but we need to look after public goods, So we're constantly trying to find the balance between the two things. So, of course, you've got the EU regulation, which is called the General Data Protection Regulation, which provides a legal framework for that. It is largely insufficient. Bordeaux, as probably Bilbao, is actively involved in shaping these policies and regulations for the future. In Bordeaux, we are now we are a member of Eurocities network, which is a very influential organization, gathering the 130 largest cities in Europe. And we co-chair the Knowledge Society Forum, where all these ethical matters are at the heart of our strategy. And I think, again, by working together, cities with cities, we are able to lobby at EU level and get the policies shaped the way our citizens want them to be. So really, it's all about getting the balance right. And I would go to values. We need to do this preparatory thinking to set up very strong foundations and give meaning to our actions. So we start by outlining clearly the definition of the values that drive us, the core principles that guide our daily decisions. These values are well known: efficiency, social justice, transparency, again back to what Louis was saying, sustainable development, social cohesion, access to education. Otherwise, we will achieve nothing if we haven't, really agreed on these values. Once we have these as a big anchor, values must result in principles. That's the next layer here. So what's the difference? If I take, for instance, social justice can be a quest for equality. All citizens are equal. But do we want equality or do we want equity? Because, for instance, when you talk about the digital world, well, you will need to make more efforts to help some citizens become digitally aware than for others. So this is more equity than equality. To embody these principles, we have to work on the shape and the structure of our governance, the level of openness, the mechanism set to assess their action and their impact, and to what extent we invite our citizens to be part of the story in the making. And we said earlier, yes, we do want our citizens, and they are ready for that. They really want it, particularly Generation Y, for instance. They are very responsive when we consult them. Maybe I'll talk about just a few quickly. I don't know how much time I have left. 3 minutes? Okay, so I will skip the part about the Bordeaux projects. I wanted to, give you a few examples of projects, but maybe there'll be a discussion afterwards and I can get back to it. Otherwise, you'll come to Bordeaux and we'll share with you what we're doing there. So, project? No, I don't have time for a project. One, okay. Thank you. Maybe talk about what we're doing about heat wave safety preparation using digital tools. We have a number of old people, and we've put in place a very sophisticated system of alerts where as soon as the temperature rises beyond a certain level in summer, all the old people who live on their own and who've registered on that system get a phone call, which is an electronic phone call, but funnily enough, they don't get cranky about it. They don't say, oh, I got a machine calling me. They really have the feeling that the town hall has called them. And asking a few questions, and according to the signals they send, the way they respond to the questions, then there's an escalation. If they are not well, then we call them more regularly, or we alert the services. It's simple, it's working really well, it's proving very popular, and it's saving lives, more importantly. So going back to our great principles, collaborate. Take into account all the stakeholders, and a number of these are here in this room today. We need to make a win-win partnership with all the players in the digital world. So there's the elephant in the room. I haven't mentioned the GAFAs or the GAFAMs so far, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft. They have this incredible capacity to interact in real time with hundreds of millions of people around the planet. No local government can do that. And all of this at an incredible pace and scale. So we need them, but they need us too. They need us because they need showcase projects. As we said before, because cities can deliver quickly projects that are visible and tangible. And these companies now, they need recognition, particularly in Europe, where they're a bit challenged. So we are working with them, and I think it can be, again, a win-win partnership. Then we have the manufacturers. In my view, industry needs to shift from a position which is technology-driven and which makes us city leaders sometimes uncomfortable, to a position which is city needs-led. Needs are the mother of innovation. Manhood has progressed, since the creation only based on needs. So that's what we want, the dialogue we want to have with the manufacturers. Then we have the local startup companies, which we want to nurture because maybe they are the future GAFAMs. And also, we need to help them grow. Then, again, the players, we have us, the city leaders. We initiate the projects that are needed for the communities. We help the other players understand the DNA of our city and of our community. We have a say in the rules of the game. And we make sure, always, as Michael Bloomberg states in his Data for Good exchange, that we keep the human dimension in every project. Then what is needed in the equation? The funding, of course. I really think that if cities and industries work together on projects that are replicable, scalable, funding will come naturally, and it's happening right now. And finally, the other players are the other cities. Individually, Bilbao alone, Bordeaux alone, we can do great things, but it will remain just a small firework. It will never be a big bonfire. Whereas when we collaborate with other cities, and I think that's one of the great benefits of Europe, of the EU today, we can really make a change in the market. We can really make a big leap forward. And I think today there are people from New York and Singapore, and again, I'm talking about the EU, but this can be, of course, expanded. So yes, let's collaborate and scale up projects. Just to conclude, this is how we think in Bordeaux. Providing new technologies and services, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence will definitely result in some unforeseen effects on society and on individuals. We can't avoid it. But as city leaders, as local governments, we certainly, we can't predict the future, but we can exert some kind of influence on this transformation. We can encourage innovation, but at the same time, we have to take responsibility for the consequences. We are responsible. We have a liability there. That responsibility is to look after our constituency, our public good, to consult them, to take them into account, and to help them think about what kind of society we are in, but also what kind of society we want to become. So my last sentence would be, let's never forget that digital transformation is only, a smart city. It's only a means to an end. And the end is just to get people to live together better. Thank you for your attention.